Hello.
Hey, Chiam.
How
Hey,
are you?
I'm so sorry I'm late. I don't know if we've like missed it or anything, but uh, I had my alarm set for 10, and I did not register, so I wasn't even in my room.
No
Uh,
problem. You're here now.
I am here. I am here.
Yeah. So thanks you for being with us. So we're already live, I think. Yep. Yeah, we're already
Hang on.
live.
Let me plug in my laptop.
Yeah. Take your time.
Cool. Wow.
Okay. So welcome everybody to this new session of JavaScript Morocco. So this is our second one, and we're here with Swyx. So Swyx, for who don't know Swyx, so Swyx is an active member of the community of JavaScript. So he has been active in past years in everything that is related to React. Swyx has a financial background, so he's coming from something that very different, and he's publicly learning with us. So he shares everything that is related to his a journey with JavaScript, React, and more recently Svelte. So today we're going to talk about Svelte, this kind of new, let's say, compiler that helps us build JavaScript applications. Yeah, so I'll let you just introduce yourself, Swyx, a little bit more, especially this learning public thing, and more recently, I think the infinite builder profile that you're coming with. Yeah.
Oh, great. No, I mean, I thought that was a very good intro. So
something that I forgot.
Not much else to add.
Okay.
I think I changed careers about 3 years ago, and most as most things go, you sort of find your way into web development, and I wanted a job, so I learned React, and that was most of my 2017, 2018, 2019, and the main reason I got turned on to Svelte was basically. I heard a lot of like marketing about how like it's faster and smaller and all that, and one of React's pain points is that it's big, right? Like the core framework is about 100 kilobytes of JavaScript if you take React and React DOM. So that's a lot if you're just wanting to make some parts of your page interactive, and so I was looking for like something that was a little bit better, and that's where Svelte kind of fits in, because the default hello world is very, very small, and also the other thing that made me try it out was basically I normally live in New York, and Rich Harris, the creator of Svelte, is also in New York. And you can only bump into him so many times without actually trying out his thing. So I tried it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." So I'm still pretty heavily invested in like the React community. I think React is still a great framework. I helped to run the reactjs subreddit on Reddit, and I think there's like 200,000 of us over there.
Yeah, this is a lot of stuff. Yeah.
But I think in terms of like the toolkit that Svelte provides. I think that it just like is really easy to get up and running with, and it only makes some very small compromises. So I'm pretty happy about that, and I think that a lot of people don't really know until they try it. And it took me a year to like of like listening to like, hey, try Svelte, try Svelte, and then I actually tried it. It usually takes me a year to try things. So all I'm doing now is just like sharing, hey, like this is an alternative that's available. You should try it if you're looking to build interactive sites that you actually don't really use the full functionality of React. I think most people don't actually use the full functionality of React. Like if all you do is like use state, use effects, like that you don't need you don't need React. So I think this is another way of doing things. Well, I mean, one of the things I'm wondering as well, like, are you looking for questions, or is it just you and me? Or how does this work?
No, it's up to you to decide. I don't know if you have like slides, or do you want to share code, or just talk?
I have a screen. Like I can screen share and talk about stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So just to organize things, do you prefer that we like put our questions as you do the presentation, or do you prefer that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's just that I cannot see any. Oh, there's live comments. Okay. Okay. I see. There's a tab in the StreamYard thing for live comments. Okay, so I can see that, but also just like
I'll pick the questions and then you can ask them.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, so let me give you the presentation mode. So this is my first time at StreamYard also. So
this looks yeah.
Yeah. So you've just
also my first time is in StreamYard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just
okay. So
or maybe the other one.
So what okay, am I good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So what I want everyone to do when looking at Svelte is basically you can check out some of these docs, and then you can also go through the tutorial. But then what I'm going to take you through is assuming that you already know a framework like React, right? And I think starting from a nice base and then translating it back and forth is a really good idea. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna use the REPL. So every language has a REPL, and Svelte is basically a language. It has a compiler and a language, and we're just gonna live code in here, and then you can sort of share stuff around. Okay, so I'm gonna paste this into the. I don't have the ability to put comments into the StreamYard thing. But anyway, it's svelte.dev/REPL. So what you can see over here is that we have what I'm going to do for you is I'm just going to reduce it to the most basic requirement. Right? Here I have an H1, and it just says hello world, and that's about it, and it shows up on the screen. So now what we want to do is we want to understand what Svelte does for us. So this thing is called app.svelte, and that runs through the compiler, and the compiler actually outputs this, right? So it creates all this like sort of raw instructions, but it actually is very human readable. And the first thing I want you to notice is that it says import Svelte component from Svelte internal, okay? And then scroll all the way down, and what does this look like to you? This looks like React.
Yeah.
Class app extends Svelte component. That's React. So it's a very interesting parallel. I think a lot of people don't know that actually a little bit under the surface, it basically compiles to a component model exactly like React. And a lot of things are like scoped to component instance, even though Svelte uses some of the things that maybe look a bit like Angular 1. It actually has a lot of the modern features of React. The other thing that you'll notice is that basically the app component only has constructor. Okay, it doesn't have, so what normally inside of a React component you have like a render lifecycle, right? Or like a component did mount, component will update. I don't know. I already forgotten all the class hooks, the class lifecycles because I only use hooks. But anyway, so like only has constructor, and there's a very good reason for this. But we'll talk about that later. But it runs this like init function, and it has this instance, it has options, is not whatever. Okay, so the main thing that we want to understand here is this create fragment function, right? It runs this create fragment function, and it has a bunch of it has a bunch of instructions. It returns this object, okay, and basically it has create, like a C, right? C stands for create, M stands for mount, and then D stands for dismount. So what this really is actually instructions that compile to the raw JavaScript that you would do by yourself. Okay, so if you look at the source code for this element, this actually comes from Svelte/internal, right? I'm going to show you the raw source code itself. You cannot do this for React because React is so complicated. It's really hard to explore. But I'm going to show you exactly what it compiles to in the raw source code. And once you realize that like this is something that you could write yourself, I think that's the main breakthrough, at least for me, you know. So inside of the source, Svelte has two parts, right? One has a Svelte compiler. Well, we're not going to touch that today, but that's the Svelte compiler takes what you have on the left and translates it to what you have on the right. So that's the Svelte compiler. The Svelte runtime is the stuff that we are going to use when we run code. Okay, so everything here we can actually import. Okay, so let's see. So this is Svelte/internal. So we're going to go into internal, right? And we're going to say, okay, we want to import what was it? Create. Whereas we want to import element, right? So let's look at index.ts, and it's somewhere inside of here. I happen to know that it's inside of DOM, and the element function is here. So Svelte is written completely in TypeScript, so it has internally it's got strong type safety, and it's got some TypeScript functionality, TypeScript sort of capability. But you can see here, the entire source code of element is just the DOM instruction of DOM document.create element name, right? And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're saying basically document.create element h1, and then we're saying h1.textContent equals hello world, right? Let's actually try that on a completely blank page, right? Depending on how good you are with JavaScript, this may be completely new to you, right? So we're going to say something like, so we're going to have we have body here. So we can say document.create element h1. So I'll just say this is h1. I'm going to use var so I can easily edit it. And then I can say h1 dot what is it? Text element, text content equals hello world. Then I need to mount it, right? So I have created this thing, but it's not showing up yet because I have this inside of my JavaScript. I need to render it onto the DOM. So that's the create side, and then now I shift to the mount lifecycle. And the mount lifecycle uses this thing called insert, right? And we're gonna give it a target and an anchor, basically the element with which to mount on. Here it's hidden away for you, so that's not that great. But actually, like it's a little bit like React DOM.render, and then you put in some JSX and you put in a container, right? So that's exactly what we're doing here. So here, let's look for insert, and this uses target.insert before, right? So we can say, for example, something like document.body insert. Before, I don't know if this works or not. H1. I cannot insert. Hang on. H1. Let's see. I'm not. What are the APIs for this? Node, target, and H1. Okay. So I need a target. What is the target? Let's see. Document.body. Okay. Anyway, I'm just going to use a pen child. But let's say if we had an element, we'd be able to use that as a target. So what have we done? We've written 3 lines of JavaScript code. We've created the element. We have created the content, and then we've rendered it onto the screen, right? So I want you to understand that Svelte compiles your template into directly the JavaScript that you would write for handwriting yourself, right? And it also does the unmount. It also does the unmount for you. Like if detaching go to the detach, and detach just uses node parent node dot remove child. Like it goes up to parent and then it removes the child. So the reason Svelte is fast is because it's writing raw JS, right? There's no virtual DOM in between all of this. There's no sort of scheduler or anything. It's like Svelte does have a scheduler internally, but at its really core basics, the reason it's fast is because it's compiling to raw JS. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So that's extremely powerful. And did you have a question?
Yeah. Just for the people that were that have just came, please put your questions in the comment section, and we will just ask Swyx as he does his presentation. So just
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm happy to take questions. This is completely live, and I think it's actually a good thing to be live. Otherwise, you can just watch a YouTube channel. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing that I want to talk to you about, right? So this is raw JS, fine, whatever. And so what this already gives us is that we have a component model, right? So I can just say something like body.svelte. Let's just say body.svelte. And I'll just paste it in here and just say hello body, right? And I can import from here. So here's where we start to have components, right? We can say I'll just have a script tag over here. So Svelte uses HTML as the authoring language. The reason to do this, there are many reasons to do this. One of the reasons is that you can use syntax highlighting that is built into your editors and your parsers and your linters and prettier formatters and all that. So that's why it uses HTML instead of JS. So import body from /body.svelte, right? We already wrote that in here, and we can just say body, and we should be able to render independent components, right? The other thing that I want to show you next is that we also have props. So it's very easy to pass in stuff like that. So let's just say let's say we'll have a prop called name. So inside of my body component, I'll have a prop. And the way you declare a prop is I'll just say name, right? And I'll just put that here, right? And obviously name is undefined because I'm not passing in anything. If I want to have a default name, I can just assign something at the beginning, like JS Morocco, right? Is that the name of the cleanup or Morocco JS? So yes.
No problem. Yeah, JS Morocco is also good.
And then so we have a default. So this what does this look like? This actually looks like this, right? Inside of React, we would have something like name equals JS Morocco, and then we would render it, so on and so forth. So this is very, very similar, and I'm just trying to translate for you. This is how we declare props. Okay, and this is how we declare default props.
So the export keyword has been reused by the Svelte compiler to expose props that are inside the component. Okay.
You don't have to use export. You can use without export, and then this would be internal components in internal state. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that quite soon. So so let's actually give it some props, and then we'll just say that name equals to okay. So we've passed in from the parent to the child, and the child has received. So this is a very, very familiar. This looks like React, right? It's exactly the same thing, but this is the entire raw JS output, right? It's very, very small. It's 64 lines of code. This is all that's running in your machine. So it's a very, very light thing. A default Svelte, a normal sort of basic hello world Svelte app would be 3 kilobytes compared to React with the runtime itself without the app is 100 kilobytes, right? That's why the old tagline used to be is the magical disappearing framework, because the framework runs at a compile time and then it just disappears. You just run the raw JavaScript instructions, and that's what we have over here. We have the ability to insert child components, and then we mount the child component onto here like we used to. And these are just directly the instructions that you would run, that you would write yourself, except that it does all the nasty stuff of destroying for you. And if you wanted to do a transition in animation, it would do that for you as well. Okay, so let's actually do something interactive, because I think we're tired of seeing something that's static. So I'm going to declare a local variable, and we'll just call it I don't know, value. And it will make it empty from the beginning. And let's have an input type. Actually, I think we can just say value. and then I'll pass the value into our prop over here. So is that? Yeah, I'm not sure if bind value. Yeah, there we go. Do you see how there's no use state? I'm typing in stuff here into my input from the parent, and then it's updating this let here, and then it's updating, it's passing that value down to the child. There's no use state. It's just a very strict. It's just a very nice syntax for two-way binding, like doing this. And obviously, if you want to, you can do events as well. So this is basically sugar for value equals value, right? The input type. Input attribute is value, and then also like on the input or on change, will update the value. So instead of typing all of that, you can just say bind value equals value. And I think there's a shorthand. That's what I was trying to do was doing this, but I don't think it's enough because there's a binding syntax which I always forget.
Maybe with a dollar, no.
So one thing about the doc is that everything is on one page, so you can actually just scroll it very easily. So I'll just show you how I typically would think about this. So you can look at binds, and then you can look at bind checked. I can say bind values. This is the shortcut that I use. So Svelte cares about like making you productive. So it's actually going to give you a lot of sugar syntax, which is optional, but it's good to know. So okay, so let's actually do this. So this used to be what you're supposed to type, but you can actually drop this because the names of these two things are the same, and you can just say bind value, and that would be exactly the same as well. So it's very, very concise. In pretty much the same way, I can just rename this prop into a value. So let's just say I'll rename this prop from name, and I'll name it to value. Now I've basically refactored it so that I can just say value equals value, right? Yeah. And because this is a shorthand that Svelte offers, I can just drop that duplication and just say value, and that does the exact same thing. So that's very cool.
Yeah. I think everyone has dreamed of this in React. Svelte has just done it. Yeah.
Like the reason forms are hard in React is because we don't have two-way binding. And here it's like easy. Exactly. and so that's a very interesting concept. And now I want to show you something that immediately React does not have. And then I'll continue. Actually, okay, I'll do one more thing, and then I'll show you something that React definitely cannot do. Okay, so the other thing is I want to show you how to do event binding, right? So here I've just done two-way binding onto the input value. Let's actually have some other aspects of it. So let count equals to 0, and this is a very basic counter, right? I can just say button, and then sorry, button live coding is hard. count, and then whatever, and then on click. Click goes to handler, and then I can define a handler like this. Like we can use let, or we can use const, or we can use function. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to use let because it's easier, but it really doesn't matter. Okay, trust me that I know what I'm doing here. So we can say something like this. You can see this counter updating, and I haven't done any set state. There's no set state equivalent in Svelte. As long as I modify a variable, then Svelte understands how to track it. Okay, let's look at the raw JS underneath. Let's actually try to simplify it like this. Okay, so I've taken out all the other complication, and I'm only reducing it like this. So what this translates to, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna delete all this so that I don't want you to be confused. Okay, so what this translates to is having where's the count? So So in the create lifecycle, this is still the same. We're just creating the H1, we're creating the button, and then in the mount lifecycle, we're inserting onto the document. And then this is pretty interesting. It's saying like we'll add like document.event listener, right? Element.add event listener. So this listen function, you can also see it here, function listen. And it just says no.add event listener, and it gives you the remove event listener, right? So like if you had to write raw JavaScript yourself, this is exactly what you'd be doing, right? Remove event listener to prevent memory leaks. But here is the new function where we can say stuff like this, right? So if dirty, set data of this thing. So the P lifecycle is short for update. You were going to but basically it says that like if whenever we click something, we have a dirty flag. So let's actually see that dirty flag, right? Everything I typed here becomes is transformed into this component instance, right? And it's passed into the Svelte component creator, right? So and it says like and it's almost exactly what I write, right? Let's look at this, right? So I'm going to just say like I'm going to rename this variable count2.
So it first executes your code, then it does what we call change detection to see if the component state has changed, right?
It doesn't even need to have change detection. No, so you're wrong on both counts.
Okay.
So
correct me then.
The reason it's a compiler, it doesn't have to execute your code. It statically analyzes your code, right? And says that this is the script section, and here I'm going to run through a transform, and I'll look for anything that modifies the variable. So anything that like for example, ++ like modifies the variable. So I'm gonna wrap it inside of an invalidate function, and this invalidate function marks this component dirty. Okay. Yeah. Once this invalidate function is run, the Svelte runtime, which there is, it's just very small. The Svelte runtime knows that it's dirty, and then it says if it's dirty, I'm gonna set data, and set data is over here. Set data.
Is data in the DOM. Yeah.
Which just directly modifies that data, that element. So it's just a very, very simple way of updating, which I feel like people don't appreciate. Like it's so this is all it has to be. You don't have to like schedule a whole use state thing, and it is very much about mutability. So one of the key differences in philosophy between Svelte and React is that React tries to go for like the functional programming paradigm, and it tries to make everything immutable, right? Like you don't do like so what ++ is actually doing, like here I'm just updating my counter, right? What + is actually doing is count2 equals to count2 + 1, right? So we're using the equal sign here as a way to set state, right? Our set state is the equal sign. So first of all, it's very concise. Like there's no you cannot have less characters than equals. But second of all, because Svelte is a compiler, it's able to actually statically analyze and says, I have that equal sign, right? And now I can just like wrap that invalidate function around this thing, and tell and mark and make sure that every time this code executes, this component is marked dirty. And once the component is marked dirty, I'll run this, or run whatever logic is in here. I don't care what logic it is. I'll run that logic, and then I'll update it with the new data over here in the update lifecycle. So it's a little bit like, it's not sequential because we try to wrap everything up in a component model, right? This component fragment, but it's still readable. You can actually trace through everything that is being executed. Try doing that in React. You're like 5 levels down, and React does what it does because it tries to have a universal UI language interpreter that's cross-platform. Like it's supposed to run on React Native as well. But Svelte is very much web first, and directly composes to compiles to web web paradigms. It also compiles to web components, but that's a different matter as well. But yeah, like the upshot of it is that it's actually super simple to write, state, like and handlers and stuff. Like I can even get rid of this, right, and just say no handler, and I'll just type it inside of here. So this is like sort of inline handlers, and it's perfectly fine to do, and that works exactly the same way. So I just want to like get you comfortable with the idea that React stands for immutability, and Svelte is like the opposite. Like React is const, right, and then Svelte is net. And it's a little bit of the way that these frameworks have like approached their philosophy. And then surprisingly, net is actually fine as long as you scope it within a component, right? The problem with everything being mutable is that something far away might be able to modify your component here, but because it's scoped by JavaScript scope within this component, then it's very easy. Like you have local mutability, which is very, very nice.
Cool.
Okay, so
can I please pick some questions?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so TypeScript in Svelte. Is it possible to use TypeScript in Svelte?
Yes. There's two. So first of all, Svelte is written in TypeScript, right? This is in .ts. Like Svelte believes in TypeScript. So there's two things that you're talking about when you're talking about using TypeScript in Svelte. So first is you want to use TypeScript here, right? You want to say script lang equals TypeScript, something like that. And everything you want to enable type checking and stripping of types here. And then the second way of using TypeScript in Svelte is here when you want to say like, you know, I have my body element here, and then I have body here. And if I typo value, like, right, I want to be able to be notified by TypeScript, right? I want TypeScript to notify me that I have a typo here, and I can actually say something like value down here. Okay, so count is not defined. So TypeScript in Svelte is fully supported here using preprocessors, and the way that you can learn that is basically the. So I actually keep some docs here. So these are the docs the community docs that we're working on, but basically, for example, here it says use TypeScript with Svelte, and here you can set up the raw preprocessor. So here, for example, we use Svelte preprocess, which is a third-party framework. A third-party preprocessor for Svelte. Yeah. And basically, you can say things like, script lang equals TypeScript, and then here you can see that we've assigned the string value, the string type to this hello world. So it's a very, very simple way of integrating TypeScript support, because basically we can pass in. So Svelte exposes all this as preprocessors. Let me show you where it's called.
Is it still experimental, or we can like work with it in a real project?
So this one is not experimental. This one is production ready. Okay. This one, so basically every single part of the templates can be passed through preprocessors, and you can do whatever the hell you want. So if you want to write SCSS, you want to write Pug, you want to write, TypeScript, you want to write CoffeeScript, whatever, right? So is this whole idea that like there are three parts of a Svelte component. There's the HTML part, HTML template. There's the script part, and then there's the style tag, right? So we haven't got to the style tag here, but basically, if I write style here and I do color red, just red here. I have scope styling just to this element, and it doesn't filter to, like, this is also an H1, and I've written H1 style H1 color red here, but the H1 only applies to this element and not its child, because it's scoped. And so we haven't got there yet, but basically there's three elements, there's three parts of a typical Svelte component, right? Like it's got a script section, it's got a style section, and it's got a template section. So you can pass all of them through a preprocessor, and you can say like, I want to write Pug, fine. I want to write TypeScript, fine. I want to write SCSS or style or stylus or whatever, all fine, And so it is fully supported. The thing that's not yet supported is the type checking here, right? If I have a typo here, JavaScript doesn't warn me because JavaScript doesn't do type checking, but we need a language server to go into body.svelte and say, okay, I have one prop, and then I'll extract that type that's a prop, and I'll run the checking here. So that's the language server that's being written, right? So the repo for that, that's an ongoing project. There's involvement from the TypeScript core team. So this is a really good time to get involved if you really want to be like a core community member. It's not to wait until TypeScript is done. It's to make TypeScript happen, so that you're now like one of the core contributors to this project. Anyway, so this is what's going on with all the contributions and stuff. People are working it out. I think there's some very limited capability to do this, but I personally am not sure about the status. We're going to we're working on the architecture, but it's pretty much good. Like the approach that we're taking is exactly the same as Vue already has. So it's not like we're not sure if we can do this or not. It's just a matter of like who has time. That's all.
Okay.
So
just a question.
Yeah.
So the preprocessor thing, is it something that is run by the Svelte compiler directly, or is it using rollup behind the scenes or something like this?
It's run by the Svelte plugin. Yeah.
Directly. Okay.
Yeah. So the way you configure it, it basically looks like this. Here. Where is it? Where is this? Let me try and look it up here. So this is your rollup.config.js, and typically you just in order to process Svelte files, you say import Svelte from rollup plugin Svelte, and plugins here. Typically you don't need any options, but here we can import the preprocessor and then give it all the options that we want. And this option enables TypeScript by default. So most of the Svelte tooling that you'll see has this basically because people obviously TypeScript is very popular.
Okay, so we do need to have rollup in our project to be able to do this, right?
Rollup or Webpack?
Or Webpack. So there's another plugin for Webpack, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Svelte Loader because Webpack is naming. And also support is built into Parcel by default. So that one you don't even need a plugin, right? That's just because Parcel's choice is to just have first-class plugins for everything. Yeah, so that's pretty easy. And in fact, the best way to start doing that is going to svelte.dev, and you actually have the install instructions for each of these, right? So you can say if you want this for Webpack, you can do this. I think the instructions are here. Yeah, so this is the default Svelte template. It's like the equivalent of Create React app. npx dget Svelte template, it just copies and installs this file, and then this uses rollup, and then there's a Webpack version as well. Oh shit.
Okay.
The Webpack version is somewhere. I don't know where it is. Anyway, there is a Webpack version like Svelte Loader.
So for people who don't know this, the author of Svelte is the author of rollup. So the choice of the vendor is obvious.
They try to promote rollup. Obviously, basically, the main reason you choose Webpack over rollup is if you need to use some dependencies, which are not sort of ES module ready. Webpack is a lot better at that than rollup. But as time passes, rollup's going to create smaller bundles and faster executing bundles, which is very nice. Okay. So I was planning to go into the styling, but I've already given it away. The styling is something that you can do in React, right? You're writing instead of things like shitty like style equals whatever, and then some weird object syntax, right? That's not real CSS. And in fact, Rich has this idea of like Rich has real CSS. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, here's a thing on the Svelte blog. Sorry.
Yeah. So just have this statement for Amin. I think it summarizes how Svelte works. So instead of using techniques like virtual DOM diffin, Svelte writes code that surgically updates the DOM when the state of your app changes. So is it the idea behind Svelte?
Yeah, mutability and direct having sort of no virtual DOM. You're directly manipulating the DOM elements here.
Okay. Is it what we call incremental DOM, as we used in Angular, for example?
I don't know about that. I never use Angular.
Okay, so, okay. So just the term incremental DOM, is that it, or you don't know?
I don't know. I've never heard that term, okay. So I don't know if it's yes or no. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so React tries to re-render the entire component by default, and yeah. Here, if you have multiple event handlers, like only that element would re-render. So maybe that's what incremental DOM means. So let's just say we have two elements like count1 and count2, and we have another button here that says count1 and count1. Right. So we have independent buttons. These both don't re-render at once, even though they're on the same component, right? Because the JS output that's created over here says like, if this is dirty, then only re-render this. Like, we're not even re-rendering. We're just calling set data, right? And we know what set data is. Set data is like we'll coerce it to a string, and then we'll set it on that text element, right? And that's the direct DOM instruction to do that.
So if you modify a property of a child component, the child component gets dirty. So it's getting rendered, but only in the part that is using this property, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's very, I guess, I would consider that incremental, because you don't re-render unnecessarily if you don't have to.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. I wanted to talk to you about that CSS bit. So this is the blog post to read about the philosophy of like why Svelte uses real CSS rather than object syntax CSS. So that he has a lot of blog posts, but the whole idea is that, like, let's say I have this site, right, and I want to edit this. I can literally go in here and just say like, okay, H1, H2, and then I will just say like, I don't know, back color, like gradients, I don't know, linear. I cannot spell. Okay, I'm not even going to bother with the gradient, and I'm just going to say like blank salmon. Okay, this looks fine, right? And I can actually just copy that into my raw code and paste it in here. You know what I mean? Like that's something that React doesn't let you do, because React forces you to do like object casing, right, and stuff like that. And which means that like even for React inline styles, you cannot do things like media queries, right? I can just say like add media, whatever, and then do that. I can do that all here, and it's all scoped to this component, right? You cannot do all this with like an inline style, which by the way you can still do, right? I can just say like font, right? Something like that. Color. And this is okay, sure. You can do inline styles, but this exposes to you the raw full power of CSS, and that's where you want to see something like this. So let me just get rid of that. So the raw CSS basically just looks exactly like this. It says h1.svelte blah blah blah, and then it gives you that raw thing. And so this is how Svelte does the whole thing of the styles. It just says it only tags onto h1 dot whatever, and the JS output gives you that class here. So it says atcher h1 class and Svelte, and then an auto-generated hash, right? And we can still look up the source code of atcher, and it's pretty simple. I think it's, I don't know where it's from. Atcher. I think it's utils or something. But you can see that it's very sorry. Let me just. I'm just gonna guess that it's utils. Utils.
Is there a way to tell Svelte compiler that we are targeting a browser that supports Shadow DOM? So please use Shadow DOM instead of.
No, it doesn't.
Sorry.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have any Shadow DOM. It does compile to web components, which does use Shadow DOM. right here,
Yeah.
it just puts raw CSS.
Okay, so it's always raw CSS. Okay.
Yeah, but you can make Svelte output to web components. So if that's something that's important to you,
okay.
You can compile your component to web custom element. Yeah. So this creates a web component, and if you give your style tag, you would use the scoping. So I mean that's just really nice, but most of the time we don't need web components because we're already inside of a framework anyway, right? We're compiling directly to a raw HTML CSS, so we don't really need another web component because everything's just done in JS. You only really need web components if you're writing a Svelte component to be consumed by something else. So that's the way I'll phrase it.
Okay.
But
so
yeah,
another question related to maybe not this one. Related to CSS, could you please touch on the animation stuff with Svelte?
Yeah. So I'm like I'm a super newbie at this, so this is going to be interesting. But let's actually try to do this, right? So I haven't even explored a lot of the language features, but we'll try our best. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of a lot of these. And I'm going to say like toggle equal to, and I'll make this button into a toggle. Okay, so I'll say toggle equals to inverse a toggle, and I'll say something like if. So here's where we start to get into the Svelte template syntax, right? Here is a little bit different from React as well. So we'll say something like hello. And we can toggle and back and forth, and it says true, false, show hide. Okay. So the way that we can start doing animations is we can start importing Svelte. So, I basically always need the docs because I don't have this memorized. But I can just say something like Svelte transition, and then we'll paste that in there. So let's say we want a slide. Import slide from Svelte/transition, and we can just say something like transition. And Svelte understands how to use this, right? Let me just make this a little bit bigger. So it slides up and down, or you can import like a fly, and that's great. Actually, I don't know. What's fade? There's fly, fade, scale, draw. Draw is very interesting. So draw, if you have an SVG, you can actually use it to draw the path of an SVG. So for, I'm just going to use an example because I don't have any SVG here. Where's the draw conditions? I don't have that here. Let me look at my own previous repos. So save apps. So timer. Oh, no. So timer. Yeah, there was one of the timers. So in the recent Svelte Society conference, we actually had a little competition for drawing timers, and we had a bunch of different people contributing timers, and one of them was like an SVG that was being drawn. So I'm trying to look that up and show you, but I can't find it right now. But anyway, so there's all these inbuilt transitions, and you can even write your own custom transitions. So these are all inbuilt because these are very common. Like this fade, this blur. Let's see what blur looks like. Blur. See that blurring out?
Cool.
So these are all just like very basic things that you might want. You can control what comes in and out as well. So I can just say fly. So if I want to blur out, so I can just say out blur, and I can say in fly, like that. And so I can blur out and fly back in.
Cool. So how do you call this in Svelte terminology? Are these directives?
These are basically directives. Yeah. Okay. But basically, Svelte just understands that this is transition syntax, and it basically applies those values. So I think maybe the best way to explain it is using scale. So let's use scale. Okay, so, and then let's mess with the duration for a bit, right? So here is just using the default duration, but we want to make it a lot slower. So we'll just say something like duration 3000. So it's going to take 3000 milliseconds to fade. Okay, but this gives us the ability to inspect it. So what's going on, right? So, oh man, I don't know how to do this. I'm so zoomed. Okay, so you can see, the style tag, and you can see, like look at, I don't know how to look at this animation that's being applied when I click true. It's you can see the animation there.
Yeah, it's too fast, but I can see that it's getting updated. Yeah.
The animations, it basically just compiles the raw CSS animation. And the nice thing about that is that you can actually interrupt it halfway. So look at this fading in, fading out. I'm stopping it in the middle. So it's a very, very smooth thing. If you use
terrible CSS, so that will definitely help. Yeah.
If you use badly created JavaScript like this, this really, whenever you change state, it might start from 0 and then go back. So you really need this kind of like very smoothly interpolated thing. So in fact, one of the things that I was working on today, I think it was yesterday actually, was this thing. So let's actually go to Svelte and then Svelte report here. So this is something I was working on for a real app. So you can actually use Svelte transitions like this. And here I'm using the slide transition, and I have some inline SVG. By the way, another great thing about Svelte is that you can just paste in an SVG and that, this thing that looks like this. Whereas for React, you have to do like translation of like whatever Xbox and whatever. Here it's just real HTML, so you can paste in real SVG, and it's a much easier process of inlining and animating these things. So here I'm saying, class rotate, and I'm going to rotate the SVG. But not only that, I can mess with like the duration as well, right? So here I can say, again, I'm going to make it 3000, and I'm going to mess with it and make it very slow. You see this?
Yeah.
But I can pause it halfway, and it just works. It just works beautifully, right? Like this is, and this is just default in Svelte. Like it's just how things are. I think a framework. So one of Rich's lines that really convinced me to like, hey, I should use Svelte by default is basically saying like a framework should come with a styling solution. It should come with a transition solution, because these are not optional. These are just like what you should have for a standard app. So React, with its 100 kilobytes, doesn't give you any of this. You have to go and choose whatever, like 5 different animation and styling frameworks before you have something that looks like it. So probably like a production React app, that does this, just this, is maybe 200 kilobytes or something. Like it's just it's kind of too much. Like and what's great about Svelte is that if you don't use this, it doesn't ship. They don't compile it in. So I mean, these are just like a very useful toolkit. And I want to show you one more thing, which blows everybody's mind, and that's the to-do list example. And this is the difference between Svelte transitions and Svelte animations. So Svelte transitions are for like simple like in-out things, like this in-out, right? And then you can write custom transitions as well. So you can sort of hook into the Svelte transition code and write your own Svelte transitions as well. And so here I'm using something in spin. There's no default spin sort of animation transition, but I can actually you see this spinning thing. It's all calculated based off of this custom function over here. But the main thing that I want you to know about is also the animate directive, right? So the animate directive is just really like mind-blowing. Basically, it just says like it uses flip animations, first, last, invert, play, right? And it just says that like by default, you should have some object permanence to your elements, right? So this is I don't know how to do this in React. Right? You're just like toggling states, and you're able to animate. Not only like this thing moves over to the next list, but then the other ones that are below animate up, right? And the only thing that you need to enable this is you say Svelte animate on the each tag. So yes, it's animate flip, right? So this is the only custom animation that is shipped by Svelte in default, but also you can write your own custom animations as well. So these are all just like really cool ways of doing this. Like I'm still learning this, but I think it's just really cool.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's pick another question, a last one. Okay. So how does Svelte manages client-side routing?
So Svelte doesn't have a routing solution that's first party. So the first way that you should think about that is using Sapper. So Sapper is kind of like the Next.js equivalent for Svelte. Sapper does have a client-side router built in. So if you look at here, and then you have the routing. You can use the Sapper routing thing, but basically Sapper, the way that Sapper does it is it uses the file structure, source/routes/about. Let me show you the source code for my own site. So my own site is built in Svelte in Sapper, and basically here so source/routes, right? And then the index page is the home page, right? And there's a /writing/index, right? And this gives you like an index list or whatever. And then /writing/slug using this like square brackets thing. It's a very common paradigm for like Next.js is for static site generators as well. So you can see this page, like this is my own site. My internet.
Okay, so now your site.
Okay. So that's. Okay, sorry, I cannot hear you.
Yeah. So now your site
can you repeat that? Yeah. I rewrote everything to Svelte. Okay. In fact, JavaScript. This is my blog post about my experience. I used to use React and Gatsby. So my React and Gatsby site was 138 kilobytes of JavaScript, and then when I changed to Svelte and Sapper, it was 9 kilobytes for the exact same site. So it just seems like it's a lot faster. You know what I mean? So I even took like the Lighthouse. I even took like the Lighthouse scores and all that. And so Gatsby is fine on desktop, but on mobile it's a little bit slower. And Sapper because it's so small, and it's basically the same page. This is a lot faster. So and then I also go into a little bit of comparison into what it is. But basically, like I think if you're writing interactive sites, you should be using. I even have this like nice theme thing where this is Svelte binding, right? I can change the color down here as well. You see that nice transition as well. And this is super easy to implement because you just use it as Svelte store. So there are some features that I haven't discussed with you yet, which for example, I'm a big fan of Svelte stores. And let me just quickly show you what Svelte stores do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you to the tutorial, and you can just head to the stores section. So writable store
question, which is related to state management.
Yeah, state management. So Svelte has state management shipped by default as well. So no need for Redux or Malbox or anything like that. So this is the idea of the Svelte store, and basically, it's just something that's in raw JavaScript. You just write you create a writable store from Svelte /store, and you say this is count, and then look at the imported by multiple different components. So here I have a decrementer component. That's this -1 thing. And then I have the incremental component, and then this is +1. All of these are just pulling in from one central store, and you can set that you can set that as well, right? You can subscribe to it over here. So the way that you use the store, you read from the store, so you count.subscribe, and you can set it over here, and then you can display it down here. But Svelte has some syntax to actually save you time on this. So instead of writing all this like count.subscribe stuff, you can just say, we're just going to delete all that code and just directly access it with this dollar syntax. So that's dollar Svelte, and that does exactly the same thing.
Okay, so and I guess it does clean up when the component is destroyed.
Can you repeat?
I guess it does also the cleanup. I mean, the unsubscription from the observable when the component is destroyed.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you probably messed with observables before, so you know what this is like. But yeah. So yeah, it does the cleanup for you. So it's very nice, like because like this is the of what you should write, and then Svelte just takes care of everything else for you. Right? You can look at the raw JavaScript output. You can see that when I do the destroy, it does the unmounting. And it's just like a very nice, I don't know. It's really nice to write in. You know, like this is all I want. I'm an app author. I just want all this to work out for me. In fact, let me show you like the store syntax is so nice. Let me show you one more thing because like this is just like mind blowing, right? So let's say I have a writable store, right? I create a writable store and it's this variable that I call progress, and I'm saying like progress.set. So let's just say I have this. I'm setting this variable and I'm showing it in this progress bar over here, right? True.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can use that same syntax and swap out this store for something that animates between values. Okay. So let me just instead of going for Svelte store, I can say Svelte motion, and I can import tweened from Svelte motion, and I can just swap out that progress variable to tweened, right? So now whenever I update, it interpolates for me this number, right? And it just shows up like let me just show you the number down in here. It shows up, right? Like and you can use this to do whatever you want. Like you can multiply by like I don't know 100 and then like math dot floor, right? It's so flexible that like it's a very nice upgrade path from like prototyping to animating, right? Like when you want to just prototype, you don't want to worry about all the fine details of animation. But then once you're done, you want to put some finishing touches. You just swap out the implementation of the store, and it just works, which is like freaking incredible. I don't know about you.
It's incredible. Yeah. So for myself, I use a lot reactjs. I don't know if it's possible like to use it with the store, or maybe like wrap the observables in a reactjs way of handling observables.
Yeah. Do you know Ben Lesh, right?
Yeah.
TIL reactjs. So he discovered this. Oh no. I don't know what. So basically, the Svelte stores have the same contract as observables. So let me. Oh, I know where to show you. Okay, so let me show you the API. So Svelte store. This is the contract of the store. Okay, the store has. Subscribe, it has set, it has update. But basically for observable, you only need subscribe, right?
Yeah.
And so you can use observable.from or whatever, and then just pipe in everything, and then use the exact same syntax. If I took a little bit of time, let me just go to Mesh. And Mesh. But he like I think he bought into Svelte a lot when he saw this. Is that his Twitter? Yeah. See, TIL with Svelte.js, you can magically map reactjs observables with simple template syntax, and it just works. So const person of name of Charis and then wild person name. So, you got his endorsement. I don't know what to say.
Okay.
So there's a lot more that we haven't covered, but I think for React developers, you should know that this exists. You should know that your life doesn't have to be so hard. And most of the time, like, this is all you want, right? So I think this is an option that every React developer should explore, and use React for things that React is extremely good at. But if you're not actually using all of React, then maybe don't use React.
Okay, so can you tell us what React is good at that we can't do easily in Svelte?
Yeah.
Let's put it the other way. Yeah.
So I blog a lot because people ask me these questions quite a bit. So why I Svelte.
Sorry, Swyx, we're over time, so I've just noticed that, you know, if it's a problem with you, then we can just.
I'll point. Yeah. This is the page. So it's swyx.io//writing/svelte-y. And so I said that these are all the first class features of Svelte that are really good. And then here are things that React has that Svelte does not have. So React has DevTools, portal, expense, codes, first class sort of like the lazy React.lazy, and then React Native and all that. So React has this all first party, and it does a better job than Svelte. And then Svelte has all this stuff first party and does a better job than React. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. But these things, I mean, we cannot do them in Svelte, or they're just not implemented yet.
Yeah, they're just not first party. They're just like community things. So, or like they're not.
So maybe in the future we can do all these things in Svelte.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Let me see if there are some other questions here. No questions. Okay. Yeah. So one last one I saw from Mohammed is it possible to create dynamic components, or let's say we have a model and I want to open the model with a custom component, I'll say, or a dynamically chosen component. Is there a way to do this in Svelte? Is it easy to?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can just use the assign, I guess, the component function to the variable in the component state, and then use it inside the open method, I would say. Is it that way?
No, there's actually custom syntax for this. So can you see my screen? It's svelte.dev/docs svelte:component, right? So this is one of the special directives that lets people use
Okay, so thank you very much, Swyx, for sitting with us and explaining all this stuff. And thank you for choosing this mode interactively, so it's better to understand things and put our questions.
That's the point of a live meetup, like to answer questions live, to make people more involved. I just want to show you that this is something that you can understand, and it's not that hard. Like, spend 30 minutes, go through the tutorial, and then now you have a new framework that you can use whenever you want, and it's very powerful. And don't just stay within React, because there's a lot more out there, And life can be a bit easier sometimes,
Yeah, sure. I'd like to have your opinion on something. I'm really into this Svelte thing right now. I'd like to build something using Svelte. Is it a good idea, like to live stream the way of learning and building this application? I mean,
it depends. I have mixed feelings. So I do some live streaming, but I don't want to be a live streamer. I don't want to be a Twitch streamer, because I think that it's very distracting to live stream, because you're always looking for comments while you code, and then you're trying to like talk so that you're like you always have some sound going on, because like seeing someone silently typing is not that interesting. You always have to talk. So I can talk. I can talk while I code. That's my job, and I can do it for hours. But it's also like super tiring and slow. So it may not be that I don't know, like some people like it, some people like to watch me, and you should definitely try it to see how you like it. I just for me the reason I don't do it is because I find myself much slower when I do that. Like it's yeah, you know, whatever. It's just try it, see how you like it.
Okay. So thank you very much, Shawn, and looking forward to having you here with us another time. Maybe.
Yeah. Sorry, I was right.
No, it was okay.
But this is great. I think you know, this virus has been very unfortunate, but it also helps me to like meet people from all over the world, because every meetup is now remote. So now everyone's like, oh, I would just like invite some speakers from everywhere around the world. Like, it's fine, and then it's just really great for me. And you know, I like that you have so much perspective from Angular and observable land, because like I think in the US, like the React users don't really have that much experience with that. So so it's just really nice to see that you know, the passion for JS is really international. And I mean, I'm in Singapore right now. You know, it's crazy that we just talk like this, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.